On September 8, 2022, the world bid farewell to Queen Elizabeth II, one of the most revered British monarchs in the history of the nation. Elizabeth II will be remembered for a number of impressive qualities and feats, but none more so than how she overcame the challenge of continuing the tradition of a family's 1,200-year-old royal house in the modern era. Welcome back to Facts Fanatics. We are dedicated to bringing you the most shocking and downright unbelievable real-life incidents that stun the world. Today, we are going to review some of Queen Elizabeth II's most impressive accomplishments. The Queen reigned for 70 years, and although the monarchy no longer runs the British government, the head on which the crown sits wields influence in many areas. We'll take a look back at the life and legacy of Elizabeth II and delve into why her not unexpected passing at age 96 seemed to shock a nation and sent it and the world into a period of mourning. Let's get into it. At the outset of World War II in 1938, then Princess Elizabeth was only 13 years old, and she and her sister were evacuated to Windsor Castle for their safety. Her parents, King George VI and the Queen Mother, in a typical example of duty and solidarity, remained at Buckingham Palace during the Blitz. However, as she grew older and the war raged on, Elizabeth began to feel more and more certain that she needed to help the war effort. When she turned 18 in 1944, in an unprecedented move, Elizabeth joined the Women's Auxiliary Territory Service and became the first woman in the royal family to be a full-time member of the armed services. She trained as an automobile mechanic and drove trucks. While her service as a mechanic and driver didn't involve direct danger, it was not without risk. Over 300 ATS members perished during the war, and London could have been bombed at any time. Elizabeth's willingness to serve her country in a time of such dire need is an early example of the duty before self philosophy and a tenacity that would become a cornerstone of the future queen's 70-year reign and legacy. Perhaps the most important but understated accomplishment of Elizabeth II's reign was her ability to be a constant symbol of strength, duty, and resilience to Britons, as well as a living reminder to all others of Britain's past glory and its rebirth as a modern power. When Elizabeth was just a teen, her uncle King Edward VIII had abdicated the throne, causing Elizabeth's father, King George VI, who hadn't trained for the role, to become king. While King George did an admirable job leading Britain through World War II, he unexpectedly died soon after, and peace was achieved. When Elizabeth assumed the throne from her father on February 6, 1952, Britain was facing a new series of challenges after the devastation of World War II, and British citizens were understandably questioning not only their own futures, but also the need for a monarchy in the modern era. As times changed and the modern world lived on emails and Twitter, millions of people looked forward to her traditional annual Christmas broadcast, calling for hope and challenging Britons and the world to not give up when faced with adversity. The Queen led by example, crisis by crisis. Whether it be pictures of Queen Elizabeth walking stoically among burning embers of the fire that ravaged Windsor Castle within an hour of being notified, or sitting alone in church wearing a COVID mask at Prince Philip's memorial service, every adult alive today can recall an image of the Queen's unflappable demeanor setting the tone for the nation for 70 decades. She was the living embodiment of the British wartime rally, "Keep calm and carry on." And to many, after her death, she was a reminder of the disappearance of the greatest generation of all, which fought to preserve democracy in World War II in a steady and selfless manner. Traditionally, the British Empire was known for holding many colonies, including the US at one point. At its height, in 1922, the UK had almost 60 colonies encompassing 458 million people under their rule, and covered so many continents and time zones, it was said the sun never sets on the British Empire. However, after the end of World War II, it was clear that Britain could not sustain the expense of an empire, and the world was changing. With few realistic options, the British government used the monarchy to wield its softer power of pageantry to help the government decolonize the empire in a peaceful and efficient manner while maintaining good relations with Britain. Queen Elizabeth worked tirelessly and at great personal cost to her young children to encourage former colonies to willingly participate in the Commonwealth for shared economic and social gain. Queen Elizabeth's 1961 visit to Ghana, for example, though mired in political controversy and with bombs going off in the city where the mother of three would visit, was a success for Britain. Her charm offensive would find her dancing arm in arm with Ghana's first Prime Minister, Kwame Nkrumah, the very man who had led the Gold Coast's drive for independence from Britain, and she and Prince Philip walking for hours amongst throngs of former British subjects week after week for several months at a time in many countries. Diplomatic contributions in Africa came at such risk to her personal safety that then British Prime Minister Macmillan famously called President John Kennedy and said, "I have risked my queen. You must risk your money." After this call, the financial backing for Ghana's Volta Dam soon came from the U.S., cutting off a potential avenue of influence for the Soviets in Africa. When Queen Elizabeth was crowned, the Commonwealth was in its infancy and stalled, having only 8 members. At her death, that number had grown to a staggering 54 members of the Commonwealth and cemented her legacy as the tip of the spear of Britain's soft power. Although the Queen is associated with the pomp and circumstance of a 1,200-year-old royal family, millions think of her in a familiar way, as a part of their national family. Just how did Her Royal Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen of this realm and of her other realms and territories, head of the Commonwealth, defender of the faith, and Queen of the realms, come to be seen as the nation's mum and everyone's gran? Over the course of 21,000-plus public engagements, wearing hundreds of brightly colored suits and hats to make herself stand out, Queen Elizabeth invented the Royal Walkabout, giving the monarchy a sense of approachability and visibility not previously seen in history. The Queen wasn't above drawing attention to the British economy or touting scientific advancements by simply showing up, engaging people, waving, and making each walkabout look like it was her first. For 70 years, with an unrivaled work ethic, the Queen tirelessly attended thousands of ribbon-cutting ceremonies, cut cakes with swords, visited war memorials and hospitals to raise morale, and visited factories and universities, highlight technological advances. This is how the Queen consistently promoted the royal family to Britain and promoted Britain to the world. It's also how she calmly became the first royal family member to ever send out an email or a tweet. However, nothing could prepare the world for her entrance at the opening ceremony of 2012 Olympics. You know, when James Bond arrived at the palace, jogs up the famous staircase in a tuxedo, and he and the corgis collect the Queen for her helicopter ride to the ceremony. Elizabeth then parachutes into the event to receive a standing ovation. Or who can forget the lengths the Queen would go to in 2016 to talk smack about the Obamas who gamely took on the Queen and Prince Harry in the Royals versus White House Twitter showdown to promote the Invictus Games. With a fire burning in the background, a gleam in her eye, and a sassy "oh really," the Queen is widely regarded on both sides of the pond to be a victor in this epic drop-the-mic battle. How did Queen Elizabeth top off these public relations triumphs? Her next event, shortly before her death in 2022, saw the Queen employ modern green screen and CGI technology, revealing that she too was a die-hard Paddington Bear fan. This is how one modernizes the monarchy and became everyone's honorary gran. In 2013, the UK Parliament passed the Crown Act, marking a huge change in the future of the monarchy. The Crown Act updated several archaic monarchy traditions, such as sons being able to pass over older sisters as heirs to the throne and allowing monarchs to marry Roman Catholics. The Crown Act was inspired greatly by Elizabeth's life of service. After all, if anyone had proved that a woman could excel as a modern monarch while wearing the crown, it was Elizabeth II. She had a vested interest in seeing outdated policies removed so that one day another young woman such as herself could come along and have the opportunity to influence the world as she did. This is one example of Elizabeth II's willingness to modernize the crown and the royal family into the ever-changing world around it. In 2011, Elizabeth made waves in the media when she visited the Republic of Ireland for 3 days. If you aren't aware, Ireland and Britain have a long, bloody history, which involves plenty of British cruelties toward their former colony and many acts of Irish terrorism on British soil in the 1990s claimed by Irish rebels. Elizabeth was the first monarch to visit Ireland after it gained its independence, and famously visited a monument to the various deadly conflicts between the two nations. The Irish people saw her somber attitude at the monument as an acknowledgement of Britain's past cruelties, and her visit was well received. In the wake of the visit, the Irish opinion of the Queen and Britain as a whole improved vastly, and several royal family members have visited Ireland on official visits. While we could go on and on about her individual accomplishments, perhaps nothing was more impressive about Elizabeth II than her extremely charitable nature. In fact, she was by far the most charitable monarch in the UK's history, and is in the running for the most charitable figurehead in the history of the world. She personally supported over 500 British charities during her reign, and close to 3,000 around the rest of the world. It is estimated Queen Elizabeth helped raise $2 billion in funds for the various causes during her reign. There are countless other major accomplishments that Queen Elizabeth II oversaw during her 70-year reign, including being the first British monarch to address the U.S. Congress, and being the first monarch to approach Parliament and volunteer to pay income tax, which the royal family had previously been exempt from. Queen Elizabeth II truly was one of a kind, the embodiment of service and duty to the crown she inherited, and she was a game-changer for the royal family's reputation. She will be remembered fondly by Britons and the world, and as time goes on, may end up being known eventually as the greatest monarch to ever wear the British crown. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and want more content just like it, please help us continue providing similar stories by liking and subscribing to our channel. Until next time.